Welcome back to Videohead Cleaner. My name is Tommy, and we're about to get right back into GroundHog Day. We have part 2 of our review of this movie. We have much more to talk about, so here we go.
And I kind of appreciate the fact that, like, they easily could have done something at, like, the bottom of the screen and been like, day 8047 or day 3 or this or that. But you just get the vibe in this scene that he is weary. Like, he has obviously lived enough to get to know all of these people, all of these things, and he's weary enough and just trying to prove to Rita with any way he can, almost basically shaking her, where what he does next is he writes down on a piece of paper, he's like, Larry's about to come in here and take you away from me, and then passes the piece of paper across to her, where right as Larry comes in and says what he says, it's just like, we got to go, roll out or whatever before the storm hits or the weather. She reads the paper, and it's the exact thing he said. And so this is when she really is sort of like, okay.
This cannot just be a coincidence.
I need to stay with you as an objective observer, is what she says at this point, to kind of figure this out, because she kind of believes him at this point. He's certainly given her enough evidence. And this is where the tables they turned against Phil, and now they're starting to turn again. Like when we first see Phil and Rita together having a touching moment, it's because Phil manipulated her into it. And now it's because Rita has learned something about Phil. Like he's divulged something. Like he's made vulnerable in a way that he really has not been. I don't think he's been vulnerable with anybody in the film so far. He's fully put on a facade. Yeah. He has been his, weatherman sort of self in ways, or I guess the way you would just say, like, somebody on film or on that, just as we saw in the opening scene, he has an act, and it's an act that doesn't make him vulnerable, and as soon as the cameras are off, it's over.
He's been trapped in his own world for this entire time, and he's now letting this one person in. Mm-hmm. He's letting a person into this loop, this dilemma that he exists in. And it's the beginning of things really changing, because this is like the first real moment where Phil has changed as a person. It's this moment where he invites Rita in, and just again, it's a film with a lot of symbolism. And Rita is in many ways, she is grace. She is divine grace. She she's there day after day. She's trying to prop Phil up constantly. She gets irritated, but she never judges, not like Larry. Larry is full of snide judgment, but Rita never judges.
It's very true.
Rita is...
She's incredibly sweet.
She's divine grace, and Phil finally lets her in, and it's a touching moment, and it's when his character kind of starts thawing. Again, the metaphors of being frozen, right? This is when he starts thawing, right? This is when the blizzard kind of starts passing. Like he's trapped. He's trapped in Puxatawny because he knows that he's about to be trapped in a blizzard. But this is when his blizzard starts kind of passing. It's a real fulcrum point. Of the film. Yeah.
He spent days and like the night with Rita before, but it's not like this. It is a very unique way, because he is, as I said, vulnerable, but just raw and sort of like. And
he's not manipulating her.
Yeah. He's not genuine, I guess, is another word I would say. Not manipulative. That's absolutely right, because they kind of play a little game on the bed where they're throwing cards and a hat. Which Phil has clearly done for a long time in his life, because he's great at it. Again, he's mastered a whole lot of skills in this time.
He's had a lot of time to practice.
I mean, very as an insight into what Phil is feeling in this moment and genuine sadness and stuff, like he talks about how the worst part of this is that Rita's not going to remember any of it. He's going to have to go through all of this again if he wants to basically get to this point with her, which is a very, sad sort of place to be in that regard. But
and it's just the most touching moment in the entire film. He's confessing. He's confessing, and it's and there are arguably religious overtones in the film, right? Rita mentions that she went to a Catholic school. And we can talk about this, once we're done with the plot. But it has a kind of Christian allegory quality to it, right? And this is where he is.
I too have a Bible reference in my notes here, actually.
Yeah. And so it's very confessional. He's just for the first time really laying it all out there for Rita, who is asleep and just is not noticing it. And
she does fall asleep. She's kind of delighted after midnight, where she's like, "See, you're still here," and he's like, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, it's not like midnight; it's like 6 a.m." That's when she tries really hard to sort of stay awake in that, and she doesn't make it. She falls asleep at 3 a.m., where Phil kind of tucks her in and says to her sleeping, I think she's supposed to be asleep here. We don't get the vibe. She doesn't react, but he says he thinks she's the kindest, nicest, prettiest person he's met in his life as she's asleep, and is just clearly fully smitten with her at this point, despite all the other fucks he's had around town, whoever they may be. But Phil also falls asleep ultimately and then wakes up in a bed without Rita. And so you can imagine that is sort of a devastating thing to have happened, because he did make himself vulnerable, genuine, non-manipulative, and yet ultimately he still is in the sloop. He's still there.
Yeah, he once again he almost gets there. He almost gets there, but not quite.
But he doesn't backslide, notably. His demeanor has changed quite a bit in this. I think he's sort of seen what can happen if he does open himself up to other people and is just not fully selfish and manipulative.
He got this far just by opening up and being a decent person. And it's an awakening. It's an awakening, right? A moment where he is decent and he actually almost gets exactly what he wants. It's like, wow, geez, amazing. Who knew, right? He wakes up with a newfound energy. He has realized something absolutely critical, right? That he must be a better person. That the first time he had this existential moment where he could choose a path, right? He went down the dark path, right? And this is the dark path of existentialism, where nothing matters. So harm whoever you want to harm yourself as much as you want to harm, stuff yourself to the point of being sick and just do all the toxic, horrible stuff you could ever imagine, because life doesn't matter.
Why not?
Nothing matters. Nothing. Other people don't matter. You might call this like
nihilism.
Yeah, emo. We could call it emo, right? It's kind of it's maybe like a simple existentialism or whatnot, right? Or maybe just the most common way of misunderstanding what that is. And in the second time around, we see that maybe Phil has figured out that no, there's the light path of existentialism, where if nothing matters, well, then there's no reason why you can't just be a good person.
Absolutely. If we see him go through again, to a biblical place, so many of the 7 deadly sins we see, he certainly did gluttony and greed and envy and all sorts of things like that. And so he ran through a lot of like, what if I was a bad person? Or like, frankly, following the Phil that we saw at the beginning of the movie, and what would he do? And now we kind of see a bit of a change in the guy. Sort of a new tactic that we're seeing of him perhaps being nice or being moral or something like that.
Being kind. Being kind to people.
We see that reflected not only in his demeanor and his face and stuff and the way he acts, but he's passed this homeless guy probably 8 times in this movie so far, and this time he gives him a lot of money. We see him bringing coffee and donuts to Rita and Larry in a way that he never would before. He's been selfish, not selfless. And Phil was nice to Larry, which has never happened before on screen.
In all these small ways, Phil is trying to reverse himself, right? Where he was obnoxious to Larry, he now brings Larry baked goods, right? Where he would,
raspberry.
when he would ignore the old homeless man, he is now absurdly compassionate. He gives him a massive amount of cash out of his wallet. We then later on in what we might call his redemption era, as we discovered, the old man in every version of the loop dies. He dies. He's an old man, and he's just at the end of his rope, and this really starts to unnerve Phil. Like and at first you could think that he's trying to create the perfect day because he thinks maybe he's just found the key that unlocks his prison, but.
He thinks he can fix everything, but he certainly can't. And part of this whole nice era that happens just right in between the old man and that is that we see him start to work on himself, as you mentioned. He starts to read books in the diner. He starts to take piano lessons. We see him taking ice sculpture lessons, or we don't see the lessons. We see him being an ice sculpture god. Meaning that he's obviously taken lessons.
He has all the time in the world, and before that was to indulge himself to the point of despair, and now he's got all the time in the world, so why not just be the best person he possibly can be in every way imaginable, right? Playing the piano, carving sculptures out of ice.
Being nice to the people he talks to, frankly. We see him be nice to the man that annoys him with dumb questions in the morning. Whenever Ned Ryerson runs over, he unnerves Ned to the point. And this scene was improvised, by the way. Bill Murray said, I'm just going to wing this and let's go with it. And so when Ned Ryerson runs over Phil and runs over to him, Bill Murray just embraces him, says, Ned, and just gives him a big old hug, and for way too long. And we see Stephen Tobolowsky, who does not know what to expect, just look very uncomfortable, but nail the scene all at once. And it's I have to go, actually, because this is the first time he's made Ned have to disengage with this.
This is maybe contender for second most gay moment. Maybe this is actually the first most. And again, I just got to call this out. This is one of the reasons why I love this film so much, is because it just doesn't have any anti-gay animus. And moments like this where that could have been a setup for just some kind of snide gay baiting joke. It's Phil Murray just with a bemused look, huh. And then just kind of walks off.
Which is very true. I mean, they don't play the waiter for laughs necessarily, or the fact that he's gay, or they don't have him be a complete faggot or something. It's just a gay man in a small town living his life.
Exactly. There's no derision directed towards queerness or gay people, even though there are multiple moments when that could have happened. And in any number of other films of the time, it did.
It did.
And so I don't know, maybe just as a young gay teenager, I just kind of picked up on the absence of something awful. Just in addition to everything else that was delightful
Friends
about the film.
Friends is on at the same time era, and Friends certainly is sprinkled in lots of anti-gay, anti-trans stuff, just for laughs, whatever. All the sitcoms of the time, we're not yet to Ellen, we're not yet to any of the stuff that would be there that's sort of pushing society a little bit forward in that way.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it is a nice thing to have happened where, Harold Ramis.
It stands out. It stands out for that reason. Yeah, anyway.
So... This is when he does find and escort the homeless man at night to the hospital, sort of be let's warm you up, buddy. But the nurse tells him he dies of old age. And we get kind of a funny note where Phil's no, let me see his chart. Because later we see somebody in the movie call him Dr. Connors. And Rita's what the fuck? Dr. Connors. He's it's an honorary title. But we get the vibe Phil has also just learned a bit about medicine through this too, and his constant wading through time here. And he tries repeatedly to try to get this man to not die. But this is the first time I think he sees where he can't fully affect everything, and he can't fully manipulate the situation to his benefit. He can only change himself and the things he can change. And so I think that's a very notable situation where he accepts that, and the alcoholics talk about accept the things you can't change.
It's part of his acceptance of grace. It's accepting those things that you can change and those things that you can't. Like you just said, the common refrain from Alcoholics Anonymous, right? But he is struggling with this, and this is kind of an encapsulated moment of his reconciliation with the unchangeable, right? And which is notable because he is very much in the midst of his redemption arc, right? He is very actively changing as a person, and so it's he's starting to really come full circle. He's starting to not only be doing the right things, but he's understanding that why these are the right things to do, and it's not just this is his way to escape. This is just he's just becoming a better person. He's just
it's very notable that he cares about this at all, because we've seen him not give a fuck about this man walking past him time and time again. And if you would have asked Phil at the beginning of the movie, do you care if that guy dies? He would probably say no. He's like, I don't know that man. He's nothing to me. I'm a celebrity from Pittsburgh. This is just a dumbass small town. Like, but he cares. Like, he genuinely
you can imagine the joke. Well, I didn't care that he was living. It's something like that.
Yeah, no, just a wry little aside, as our little sassy character has been known to do. But it shows, again, Phil just growing in this regard. He cares about another person, and about another person he's not trying to sleep with. Because the Rita thing you could still view at least a tiny bit cynically at this point.
Yeah, there's nothing to... he doesn't have any material gain at stake in helping this old homeless man. Mm-hmm. There's no gain in that sense. But he's understanding, well, it's still important. It's not just about manipulating the world. It's about who you are as a person and what you're cultivating as yourself.
And it's not just about me in that regard, because the next thing he does is we see him giving his Groundhog Day sort of newscast intro, but in such a fantastical, well-read way now that people are gathered around and are just like enraptured by this man, frankly.
He rolls a natural 20 on his oration roll, on his speech delivery roll. And just the crowd is drawn to his magnetic presence and his stirring oration and just the sheer power of his words. No one understands Groundhog Day like this man here.
You've captured the spirit, yes.
Yeah.
And we see him sort of go on this, like, this is one of my favorite bits of the film, too, where he's like, I gotta go, I have some errands to run. And as it turns out, the errands he has to run, he's sort of walking along, and he checks his watch, and then he starts to run along because he realizes, I'm a little bit late, and he catches a boy that falls out of a tree, and I love the scene so much, because when you see him save the boy, sets the boy down, the boy runs off, doesn't thank him, and Phil says, you little brat, you've never thanked me. I'll see you tomorrow. Maybe. Insinuating, like, I don't have to catch you, child. Like,
he's now become Grace himself, right? He's there all the time. He gets no reward, but he's going to be there every day.
It's objectively hilarious.
Yeah. But just before this, there's another one of those like little moments. Like I mentioned, these moments where Phil, his look just kind of softens a bit when he's looking at Rita or interacting with Rita, or you get these moments where he realizes that he's quite smitten with her. Well, Rita has one of these moments looking at him. Like you see, Phil mentions he has errands to do, but you see a look on Rita's face that suggests that she was hoping that they would go off and then return to Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. Like she's now excited to be returning to Pittsburgh with Phil, and like you see that she wanted that, and it's just she is now has a softened look. You know, the tables are turning, and even in this way, the desire is projecting from the other way now. You know,
for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, she certainly sees the value in him, because I mean, she had no idea he had that much depth or knowledge or was well read. I mean, she's into old literature and stuff, quoting 1805 poems at him and talking about French century poetry. And that's so, I mean, she certainly is intrigued, if nothing else, because she is a new producer. And so she has only seen Phil be an asshole for a day. And granted, it's been a day. So, I mean, like, she hasn't seen just a massive pattern of behavior. But I think she sees the value in him to a degree. And when he's not being just bitingly cynical and just cruel to those around him for no reason, calling people odd nicknames and stuff, or just not being selfish.
The night and day difference.
It's pretty massive. So But the next errand he has to run is these three women. We see their car get a flat tire, and before they can even get out of the car or really assess the situation, they just start getting lifted into the air. And one of them goes, "Oh my God, it's an earthquake!" But no, it's Phil there with a jack and a tire, and he's just there being like, "I got you, you ladies."
Another great moment of physical comedy. They're in the car as it's rocking back and forth from the action of the jack, and so they're speaking like that too, like, "Oh, thank you, young man, for helping us. You saved us."
You must be from the motor club.
It was delightful. Love it.
And the next thing we see, he is in a restaurant, I suppose, where somebody is choking, and he gives the Heimlich to the choking man. Actually, I think this is his brother. This is the guy that leads the GroundHog Day ceremony.
Yes, this is the village elder, the chief elder. I forget the character's name. I think Patterson, Mr. Patterson. I think.
Yeah. So he is. He's just going about and doing great things, frankly. And we don't know this yet as the viewer or whatever. And I'm sorry if this is a spoiler, but this is from 1993. This is the final sort of loop day we get into here, where he is basically at the culmination of succeeding at this. And sort of all the things he's gained now, he's not using for his own selfish gain. He's not using it to get money, fame, power, women. He's using it to save these people, frankly. He has saved 2 lives, arguably, at this point, and made 3 little old women's day. He's enraptured people. It's and
it's the perfect day for Rita as well. And again, a night and day difference. The first time.
He's also not doing this for her. He's not performing this necessarily. This is all done where he does go off by himself, as you called out. Rita does not go with him, and he doesn't invite her because he's not doing this to have a self-righteousness that he needs to prove himself to anybody, mind you.
Exactly. The first day where he has an almost perfect day, it's all through manipulation and being selfish and taking and whatnot, and this time it's through giving. It's just through giving. He is just giving of himself throughout the day, either through inspiration or helping people not die. Just the full spectrum of selfless, egoless giving.
And just bringing them joy, because the next thing we see is Larry is actually having a drink with Nancy, and they're headed off to the party afterwards, where Rita says, "Oh, we should invite Phil to the party." And Nancy says, "Phil Connors? I think he's already there, actually," which, again, gives Rita pause. She's like, why the fuck would you know that name, frankly? Anyways, but as they're walking to the party, they hear the piano being played fantastically. And I think we skipped over the piano situation scenes where at one point when he's trying to enrich himself in his life, he goes to a piano teacher where he's horrendous to start. There's already somebody being taught, a little girl, and the teacher's like, "No, I'm busy right now." And he's like, How about $1,000? And the teacher's like, "Hang on, actually," and then just kicks this little girl the fuck out of the house. The little girl looking very confused and upset about it.
Just shuttles her right out. It's great.
But Phil has learned the piano and mastered it at this point. And mind you, again, I said I'd bring this back. One of the things on Rita's list was a man that plays an instrument. Apart from being kind, generous, all these things. That was one of the things. And so we can see how this certainly would turn Rita on, at least, or be another checkbox and they're like, maybe I do like this guy situation. And so Phil is smashing this. He's playing just some raucous, like sort of almost jazz type something on stage. Now a well-learned professional. And afterwards, he goes over to Rita to dance. He's done with that. But they keep getting interrupted by all of these people coming to thank him for what he's done in his life of these people, which, again, Rita is just shocked at this. She did not see any of this happen. She does not know. And she's like, how do all these small-town people know you? You spend one day here a year, yet this man just thanked you for saving his life. Or the woman thanked you for saving her husband's life. The 3 women come over and talk about it.
He's had nothing but derision for everyone in this town and everything about this town and everything about Groundhog Day and the fact that he's there and not somewhere else. And it's just where did this Phil come from? Where was this Phil the entire time? Right, it just as we can understand, just she has no frame of reference for this at all.
No, and she's like, "What did you do all day like with this?" Because
how is this even possible? Yeah, exactly. And he is in fact the center of the town. He is the high point of Groundhog Day. Human Phil. Not Groundhog Phil.
God, we forgot to make that distinction so many times. You're probably so confused, listener.
Our apologies for not keeping this distinct. Yeah,
that's on us. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as they're sort of dancing or whatever, the music stops, and the town leader, whatever, I don't know if he's the mayor, but he is the guy leading the Groundhog Day ceremony that was saved from choking to death. He says there's a bachelor auction to be had. And so Phil gets pushed up there by a woman saying, "Oh, Phil Connors, get up there." And there's actually a bidding war for Phil between Nancy and I want to say Doris, the waitress. I could be wrong. It might have been one of the women from the car earlier. But they go back and forth, $5, $10, $20, getting up to $60. But as they're considering ending it at $60, Rita bids $339.88, which we assume is everything she has. It seems very specific otherwise, to buy Phil. And the leader of that auction says, "I don't think anybody's going to top that," and so she wins. And in contrast, just to really drive a contrast home, Larry rushes up on stage after this and is bought for 25 cents.
Which is a correct assessment of his value as a human being, more or less. Yeah.
Spot on.
Yeah, they nail it.
And so we next see, because Phil is now Rita's, that they are out in the snow and he's carving an ice sculpture of her. She's kind of cold. This is obviously taking a while. She keeps being like, "Hey, can we just go maybe inside?" Like it's at nighttime in a blizzard. But as he does ultimately rotate the sculpture around, it is a beautiful rendition of her face. He does it very well. And they kiss because it's a very romantic, touching gesture.
Yeah. And again, more tables are turning. We have this moment where Phil walks past these ice sculptures of Groundhog Phil, and it's a statement about himself. And here we again, the tables are turned. Now the sculpture is of Rita, and it's for an entirely different reason. Just the meaning of ice now has even changed. Just full metamorphosis, even expressed in the material in the world too.
Which is very interesting. And then we see the clock strike 6 again, though, and we're left to think. Well, that was a beautiful day. Phil nailed this day. He did a bunch of nice things for a lot of people, but
we hear Sonny and Cher once again. We hear the same music, but nope. We got trolled. The radio DJs they pulled a fast one on us. They just love that song so much.
It's a good song.
Yeah.
Like,
why not play it every morning at 6 a.m.? Why not? Yeah.
And then we see an arm reach over to shut off the alarm, as opposed to Phil smashing this alarm that has caused him such grief. And it's Rita. Rita's arm reaches over. And Phil is kind of shocked this is happening. He kind of looks over and he pinches her. He doesn't say to her, "Pinch me to see if this is real." He pinches her and she goes, "Ow!" And he's just shocked this is happening. And he says, "Something is different," to which Rita asks him if it's good or bad. And Phil says, "Anything different is good," because he is happy to be out of that situation.
He is the curse has been broken. I guess the blizzard has passed, even though the blizzard came and went and there's snow everywhere. But yeah, the blizzard has passed. Finally, it is now finally February 3rd. And
do you know what today is? Phil says.
Yeah.
Today is tomorrow. It happened.
which is a very that's a very Zen thing to say. It's like maybe that's how it came across. I don't know. It's like we know the entire backstory of it. So, oh, what a goofy thing to say. I guess it's kind of true. And I guess, does it have some meaning? It's like, well, it's tomorrow.
And there's really
that's what we know for sure.
a minute of this movie left because they do just kind of happily walk off. He looks outside and sees that the blizzard it actually is snow outside. It's not the same day from before.
Yeah.
And so they run off in the day to go have fun, whatever way they're going to have it there. But it is just an interesting bit because we're left to wonder, does he ever tell her about this, frankly? Because he did not reveal... I don't think he just revealed it all. Ultimately, what happened. In the perfect day, the one that finally breaks the curse, I don't think that he divulges his divinity, as it were, right? Or the nature of his condition. He doesn't clue Rita into that, and so I suppose she would have no idea at all. He would just have this, boy, he'd have a large expanded set of memories because we really have no idea how much time passed just for Phil, but based on his new skill set, it's an enormous amount of time. I was actually counting this while I was watching the film, and I swear I counted, just as far as what we see on screen. Like, we know that more time has gone by, but I think that we see 40 days and 40 nights, and it's just, again, a film where it just really feels like there are all these Christian allegorical references and whatnot. Yeah. Is that really a thing? Anyone in the audience, and I'm actually being serious about this, if you're going to watch it, count it and just confirm this for me, because was this really like a reference to Moses wandering through the desert and finally reaching the promised land? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, like, so I want someone to verify this. For the Bible heads out there, Moses did not have a great promised land ending, actually.
Well, yeah. This is where, like, the Arrested Development narrator comes on and says he didn't. Yeah. That didn't happen. Yeah. So. Yeah.
But no, that's very interesting. Harold Ramis, when I was looking at some of these little trivia notes or like sort of interview stuff, he says in his mind it's about 10 years. I believe the original writer of the script, let me look up his name real quick, but he said it was going to be 10,000 years in his original estimation of what was going on.
Which sounds like a appropriate amount of divine punishment,
Danny Rubin, by the way. Danny Rubin is the guy that wrote the story, and Harold Ramis went in and sort of touched it up, helped them sort of co-write, edit, polish it off to be what it is today, which is frankly a masterpiece. It could have been so many different things, like we mentioned, where The Mummy was almost directed by like Rob Zombie or something, or like some of these people like Clive Barker, some of these things could have turned out so very differently. And you just have to appreciate the films we do get and the hard work and the sort of touches that we get from very talented people whenever we have little gems like this. Yeah. So it is interesting to think about in the director's estimation, 10 years living one day is a whole lot of that.
That's still an enormity. Oof. Yeah.
So we see, why Phil would have changed in that. He's had a lot of time to absorb what's happening in this and ultimately become a different person because, he's lived through all these various eras that we only got snippets of, frankly. And, again, comedic snippets because they didn't want to bog down the film with a lot of some of the darker elements. Some of the cut scenes where instead of breaking a pencil type situation, he shaves his head and fucks up his whole hotel room type something with all feathers everywhere. Yeah. They couldn't figure out how to dissolve that scene into the next day very cleanly, and so they went with a pencil, which sure. But they had him do all sorts of things. I'll get to a bit of that here in a moment, but it's very interesting. And so let's talk post notes, whatever about this.
Yeah, what are like I mentioned all these motifs and symbolic elements and figurative elements and whatnot. Just watching this every time until now, I never really just analyzed the film like I would, something that I had already predetermined was a think piece film, and it just kind of shows you that that's a trap. That's a trap. You should always be willing to give any film the full rigorous assessment that you would give a film that is denoted as a prestige film, right? Mm-hmm. And this is a great example of it. It really is so symbolically rich, just well written. But well written meaning great use of metaphor, great use of representational elements, themes, and so on, like literary elements, but
it doesn't beat you over the head with them. I think you really had a good assessment when you talked about it being light as air, because it is just an enjoyable comedy. This is another movie that would just come on at times, back when cable, that was the only way you could catch movies type something, was reruns of them or such. And I would always sit down and watch this one too, because it was just a funny little thing. Yeah. And there's something to enjoy when I was just a kid, enjoying just the sort of slapstick comedy or the little wry asides or whatever. Yeah. But there's definitely something to be enjoyed as an adult who's lived much longer in life and has seen a lot more and has learned a lot of lessons, frankly, much like Phil had to go through and learn lots of lessons to become who he is at the end of the movie.
Just the notions of being stuck in place, and it's just the same day going by again and again, and nothing's really changing, and you just feel like you're freezing to death. Ooh, man, that's a weighty metaphor there.
Which,
and
I
it's
mean, the bowling guy totally hits it when he's like, wow, that's like my life. when Phil's describing his literal horrifying nightmare, that man in a normal job in a small town was like, actually, that sounds familiar.
Yeah. It's a film where, it's a film for the whole family, in that it's got something for the kids and it's got something for the parents. Like there are levels that, as an adult, you can appreciate more fully. Just that idea of being emotionally and socially stuck in place, but then also just spiritually and existentially stuck in place. I could kind of feel it on a vague level, but I never really just thought about this content of the film until now. And it's just wow, what a gem. Like and again, just other elements like the nature of shadow in the film, of seeing one's shadow,
the double Phils, the drawing of these comparisons, stuff.
The shadow of Phil versus one that emerges from the light, as it were, right?
And he sure got his more than 6 weeks of winter.
He got a classic dark night of the soul that just never ended until he figured out what needed to happen to emerge, because it wasn't going to happen. Like this was unlike the weather. This wasn't going to just change on its own, right? And so again, as a weatherman, he had no frame of reference. He couldn't just wait for this one to pass over, and go about being the same old person, like it. Yeah.
And it's also interesting. It's very debatable, again, because they did not ever reveal what caused this and what resolved this.
Yeah.
Why he sort of broke out of this.
You said something that I've been waiting until now to circle back on, and I'm glad you said it like you did. There was no. There were no framing devices in the film. Mm-hmm. There was never a time went by ... little like text on the screen, or some indicator about how many years went by, or the day count. No frame of reference given. It's just happening, and you just have to figure it out, kind of like Phil. You're just left wondering what's going on. What in the world is going on?
How does he know these things? How long has he been here?
And no one ever answers that question. And he just had to figure it out. Like he had only himself. He had only himself. And until he realized that he didn't have only himself. But it took him having only himself to get to that point, right? Again, a dark night of the soul. He had to unravel as a person to then recohere in some new form that could survive.
Or a very true love's kiss type thing, because we saw the first bits of Rita and him trying to romance, again, being very manipulative, selfish, and not based in love. It was based in wanting to fuck her. And now that he finally accomplished this, you could certainly see it as that, in a bit of a tropey way of that.
He goes from vice to virtue. Right, someone who operates off of vice to someone who is virtue based. But
Importantly, in not knowing how this is caused or fixed, he doesn't go into this final day cocky or anything, or like knowing like I've nailed this.
Yeah.
He's kind of shocked himself when he wakes up and is like, oh my God, like this is over and I'm kind of a better person. Like something of a, and I'm sure he connects that in his mind and reflecting on this because again, he may never tell anybody about this at all. He may go back to the incompetent psychologist and blow his little mind or something, but we don't know if he tells Rita about this and his whole experience.
And even if you wanted to, how would he do it? I mean, like
without ruining things, potentially.
He could. I guess he could talk endlessly about February 2nd. This year in 1993, or like this one strange, crazy day that only he knows anything about. Mm-hmm. Like how, yeah.
It would be harder. He doesn't have the godlike future predicting powers anymore.
Yeah. I mean, what do you tell people about that except that just be a good person? I don't know. I mean, like just what. I mean, you could tell him this story, but I don't know. Really, the only thing that mattered from that story, and honestly, the only thing that mattered to Phil was just be a good person.
And honestly, you could argue it was just contentment, perhaps, because it might not even tie back to Rita. He, at one point at the very end of the movie, says, like, we should live here in Punxsutawney. And we see him start at the beginning. Just, that's the worst thing in the world he can imagine. Like, he's very discontent being in Punxsutawney. He's discontent being around these people. But now he's grown to love them. He's grown to help them. He says he wouldn't mind living here and something. And so it could just be that. It is fun in a way for the interpretive viewer to not have these things just explicitly spelled out and beat over the head with them.
But again, just being as well written as it is, right? He had to learn everything about everyone in Punxsutawney only to realize that was never necessary. He only had to know about himself, right? And it's just and without beating you over the head with this way of structuring it, it just presents it. It just puts it out there. It doesn't demand that you doesn't demand that you decode it.
No, it doesn't even tell you that. Yeah, frankly, on the surface, you have to think about it for that.
You just feel it. It just feels like such a solid film, but for these reasons, right? It's it's for these layers of good literary use of these devices and good storytelling and just heart and sentiment,
Rita provides a great heart, Annie McDowell, for this movie for sure. I think it's a very intriguing point you talked about with her being divine grace and stuff, because she's a very generous, very kind, very understanding person in that. Yeah. And it's only when she finds out that she's being manipulated and stuff where we even see any possible negativity at all coming from her, because she's just a very, very strong heart, and that's kind of what Phil aspires to be ultimately. And I think that's what he learns. Basically, I don't want to fuck her, I want to be her. Yeah. And I think that's it's very important.
Yeah, and she doesn't even punish him, but just he just gets nothing. He just gets nothing. He's just left to himself when he tries to cheat Grace. There's a powerful religious tone to it, but just also again, and this is maybe something I always just kind of picked up on and never really understood. One of the reasons perhaps I just love this film so much is that it could have been so much more religious, or it could have had a stronger feeling of religiosity about it, and it doesn't. You can imagine how it could have been inspired by a Christian tradition, but it doesn't feel like it's evangelizing or proselytizing. Again, that the kind of light as air touch.
For sure, yeah. It's and it is a PG film. I think it's I don't know if it's the only one Harold Ramis did or if it was his first one. I forget in reading that. But everything else to date had been PG-13 or R. He did National
This actually got a PG rating?
Vacation. It has a PG. So that honestly colors things when you look back. You're like, they don't swear hardly at all. There was no explicit sex or anything. There was nothing like that.
I would just assume with the suicide content that it would have gotten a PG-13.
PG was a little more flexible back then type stuff.
But I mean, they never show him being mangled or So,
right. We were all exposed to some PG movie that traumatized us, like Mufasa dying in a valley or whatever. So, I mean, there are things in PG you can get away with there. But I want to, I guess, touch on the biblical note. Tommy and I are not religious, but we certainly grew up in it, and so we have a lot of knowledge of this stuff.
We're certainly, we grew up culturally Christian for sure, and definitely in our childhoods, definitely were much more immersed in Christianity. Absolutely.
And not to get into our trauma of it all, mind you, but I know a lot about the Bible. And so what I will say is this movie parallels to me a lot of the journey Solomon has writing Ecclesiastes, to take it back to not just Christianity, mind you, but to the Old Testament. Solomon was as rich as could be. He had all the women he could ever want, 770 by many counts, and he was essentially trying to find meaning in life while living the same day over and over again, wanting for nothing. The phrase from that book that he often ends passages with that sticks with me is "There's nothing new under the sun." But importantly to this movie, the full verse in one of those is "What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun."
Yeah.
And that is very much Phil's lived experience in this. He has to find meaning or a way to move forward in his life, even when he knows that his whole life is a repetitive cycle. And so he tries things. He tries money, women, suicide. I don't think Solomon tried that one as far as we know, but he tries being selfish, being selfless, gluttony, learning new skills, general knowledge.
But both were all powerful. And,
absolutely.
Yeah. And it wasn't by way of worldly power that they self-actualized or became a truer self, a more virtuous self.
And ultimately, Phil's curse is seemingly broken by him learning to let go of the selfishness and preconceptions of what should be, as he sort of learns to be selfless and connect with those around him in a way he was fully incapable of before the movie. And so I don't know. It's been a minute since I've read Ecclesiastes. I'm sorry to the Solomon heads out there. Exactly how that resolves, aside from Solomon being like, I guess I'll find meaning how I can. But Phil has a similar journey, and so that struck to me at least a note. So it was funny to me that you also pulled out some biblical notes and stuff, and when we talked about the sins of it all, him just cycling through those to see what he can do with his life at certain points.
I was also wondering if the trio of Phil, Rita, and Larry are they kind of Holy Trinity? I don't know. I was toying around with this notion. I'm not convinced, but just
I think the Larry of it all breaks down in that one probably.
Perhaps they are more of a id, ego, superego, but that's a whole other avenue of interpretation.
But it is funny, like a lot of the. I told you, like, the original sort of Danny Rubin script was a lot darker, and so they conceivably could have had him run through all the sins, like murder and this or that, but Harold Ramis talked about how he intentionally left off some of the stuff like that, where he goes through and is basically a sadist or a psychopath type part of that journey. It can be implied, you can think about that perhaps, because if he's willing to hit a mailbox and drive off a cliff and punch Ned Ryerson in the face, perhaps he's willing to, do whatever else, because he knows there's no consequences for it. But,
just his getting information from someone just to then in what is your next day use that to exploit them for sexual gratification. It's pretty dark.
Yeah.
It is pretty dark when you spell it out like that. So he definitely had his that was he had we could just call it that the sadist era, really, because. Yeah.
Well, and if we were going through envy or jealousy, we could absolutely conceive of a time where Phil talks about the engaged couple where he's like, she's unhappy and she actually wants to leave him, where Phil could have absolutely fucked that girl because almost sort of with a God complex he would have had, that would have just been fun for him, frankly, to break up something like that and to do a thing. So
just rinse, repeat, didn't matter. Do it again.
So it wouldn't shock me in the slightest if there was either a full outline spelled out or not, where they had him go through all of ultimately the deadly sins or these various, basically whatever sin you could spell out, because Phil was not a good guy, and he went through a lot of eras of trying out stuff. And so an interesting note. Again, PG precluded the murder of it all, or the maiming, the dismemberment, his Saw era maybe. I don't know.
Oh, and I did finally... in my notes, the mayor, who I've been calling the chief elder, the character's name, Buster Green by, you know.
Buster Green. And I was right. I didn't want to mess up his name earlier. It's
Acclaimed
Brian
actor.
Doyle Murray.
Acclaimed actor, Brian Doyle Murray.
Bill Murray's older brother. He was also on SNL. I believe there's like 4 people that were on SNL in this. It was Bill Murray. It was Brian Doyle Murray. I think it was the lady that played his piano teacher. I forget. I'm gonna mess this up. Or it's Robin Duke, who played Doris the waitress, I believe. And there's probably one more in there. Or there is one more. I just don't want to fuck that up. I'm sorry. But Bill Murray, notably, and we'll get to this. We'll talk about cast and crew in a moment. Is there anything else you want to say, I guess, in overtures about the movie before we move on to some cast and crew, trivia, gay straight moments, all this stuff? Which I'm glad you didn't get to my gay moment, at least. You had 2 you picked out, so good.
I think I'm good. There's probably more to talk about just because it's such a good film, but I feel sated.
I guess the last thing I'll say is that it is funny that Ned Ryerson is an insurance salesman and a life insurance salesman specifically. And Bill Murray ultimately just could not give a fuck about Ned Ryerson already. But why would he need life insurance? He's a literal god. And so he's just so tired of this man in the end. And I can imagine, again, when the darker things were happening, they probably would have happened to Ned. Ned would have been tied up in a trunk and dragged out somewhere, and Bill Murray would have just laughed as he lit him on fire or something like that.
But yeah, again, one of those nice little symbolic touches. Like Phil absolutely needs like soul insurance or something, right? And it's a laughable moment and it's presented as such, but you know, at that point of the movie, Phil doesn't understand just the part that even Ned plays in this grand scheme, you know. So yeah.
Or the fact that he should pay any sort of attention or care at all to an old acquaintance, that somebody that does not benefit him. We talked about how everybody, he wanted to benefit him in some way. When he ended up helping the homeless man, that had no benefit to him. And clearly, Ned, even when he wasn't in a time loop, had no benefit to this man, and so he was an asshole to him. But he doubly had no benefit when he's a life insurance salesman in a time loop with him. So yeah, it's part of that journey to just sort of learn to appreciate people and to just be nice to them regardless.
Be a good person. I think that's the takeaway here.
Yes, and he does ultimately end up hitting most of the things on Rita's list about being the person that she wants him to be. We don't know if he loves his mother. I guess we'll see.
But he helps the car full of elderly women. So perhaps he checked that box by way of that. Count. You know. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk cast and crew for a little bit. The director, Harold Ramis, you may know him because he also has acting parts and stuff. He was one of the Ghostbusters. He is a prolific writer as well as actor stuff, although he skewed more writing in his later times. He had worked with Bill Murray before on Ghostbusters, Stripes, Meatball, and Caddyshack, most of which there were written by Harold Ramis himself, some of which starred them, Ghostbusters and Stripes. I mostly know him from Ghostbusters myself, if I had to pick him out a lineup in that. But he also co-wrote that movie, and he also directed National Lampoon's Vacation as another giant gem in his crown, which, frankly, I didn't know about. I couldn't have told you that one.
No, he accomplished for sure. Most known as Egon Spangler in Ghostbusters, of course. But plenty of behind the camera credits for sure.
He's a very talented man by all accounts, and as we mentioned before, he did unfortunately die in 2014, and it took basically right up to that moment, a little before that, for him and Bill Murray to make up, because this movie really drove a wedge in their friendship. And part of it was that Bill Murray was going through a divorce at the time and was a bit obsessed with the film and would call up Harold Ramis at all times of the night, kind of trying to, again, push for a more philosophical angle versus comedic, which, frankly, I think they hit the perfect tone ultimately. So
I did not know that about Bill Murray, so that's an interesting backstory for why he might have what the headspace he was in when doing this of all films, for sure. That's and
it's easier to abuse a friend or something than perhaps somebody you don't know, and so a decades-long friendship, he certainly seemed to maybe step over some boundaries there, or be more comfortable objecting and just not showing up to set type stuff, because there were things like that, and so it definitely strained things to a point where they just didn't work together anymore, which is sad because they did a lot of good stuff together.
And it's real high stakes. You got a budget of some number of millions of dollars, and you're trying to make a film that justifies that. And so, creative tensions run high at the best of times for something like that. And yeah, no, it's unfortunately a tale as old as time, but yeah, geez, that would have been like 20 years until they kind of reconciled, and then Harold Ramis died. Jeez.
I mean, I know, they didn't remake anything Ghostbusters for a while because there was just tension between a whole lot of them type something, and what is it, Rick Moranis didn't want to come back type stuff. There was just... Getting the band back together was very hard for them, much like getting lots of older bands back together were, because there are beefs that are made during those times and stuff.
There you go.
Very talented, Harold Ramis is great. And so Bill Murray played Phil Connors. I kind of feel like he needs no introduction, but let's give this dude his massive pile of flowers. Anyhow,
as
I mentioned, his probably most notable first gig, he had a couple credits before this, but he was on He was on Saturday Night Live for 3 seasons from 1977 to 1980. He joined the show in its second season. He was initially cut from the first season, but he later became a big prominent part of the show, including even hosting the Weekend Update segment, which today, hosted by Colin Jost, Michael Che, has persisted throughout time. He's acted in over 110 TV or film spots at this point in his long career, with most of those being pretty great work, frankly, if you ignore Garfield. He's most known for his screwball comedies type stuff.
Send us your hate mail, Garfield fans, please.
I think they're already tweaked from Zombieland, But, from the 80s and 90s stuff, including the aforementioned Harold Ramis films, but also things like Scrooged, Kingpin, The Man Who Knew Too Little, just a whole lot of scattered great parts in there he has.
But this film, it kind of began the second arc of his career, where he was seen as being viable for more serious acting roles, right?
For sure. And he was and leading man stuff.
Yeah, things that weren't just screwball comedies. And film scholars could maybe get more detailed about the arc of Bill Murray's career. For me, I kind of think of it in two big arcs. One going from Saturday Night Live till probably about Groundhog Day, and then the second arc starting with Rushmore, directed by Wes Anderson.
I have it here too. Yeah, that's a big old situation.
Which was a great film. It very well received indie film too, and it kind of began the indie film arc of Bill Murray's acting career. And talk about someone who's had a prolific career and has demonstrated why. I mean, I don't even know where to really begin when talking about what's a good Bill Murray film to discuss in terms of talking about the actor. I mean, Ghostbusters, super well renowned.
I love Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou when you talk about Wes Anderson films.
Scrooged is one of my favorite films. And honestly, it's kind of similar to this film, to Groundhog Day.
For sure.
It's someone who goes through a transformative dark night of the soul to emerge as a better person, right? So it's kind of a similar story. What about Bob? What a hilarious film. Little Shop of Horrors. He plays the psychotic dentist.
Still being brought up today. Susie Toot out there dressed as Audrey at the recent Grand Drag Race finale.
And I mean just on and on. But then just all the films with that he's done with Wes Anderson.
He also has a bunch of little parts that are great. Like if you remember him in Space Jam, or he's in Charlie's Angels as
Bosley.
Bosley. He has that great small part in Zombieland I mentioned, where he frankly almost steals the movie, where he's only in it for just a few minutes, so funny in that. Where he's dying and he's asked if he has any regrets in life for that movie, and he says, Garfield, maybe. Let's talk the Wes Anderson stuff. So I didn't actually know about Rushmore. The first one I had tacked here was Royal Tenenbaums, which is the one that sort of broke through. That was a bigger one. As the first credit I saw him with Wes Anderson on. But in The Life Aquatic, fantastic, and he's pretty much the lead in that one. But he has The French Dispatch. He might have even been in Asteroid City recently, I believe. He's had a very a good vibe with him. I think he fits well in those movies. It's just a funny little, not so screwball, not so whatever his 80s, 90s comedy is, but just kind of a fun, wry, sort of I don't even know how to describe Wes Anderson films off the top of my head. I would have to prepare more
They're,
on those to like.
They're whimsical.
They're whimsical. That was the word on my tongue at
Sure.
that moment. They're very colorful. They're, gosh. But great stuff there, frankly. He's also been in, not only in comedies, he's been in things like Lost in Translation with Scarlett Johansson in a Sofia Coppola-directed film.
Yeah.
He was weirdly in, I've definitely not seen this one, the Ethan Hawke-led Hamlet movie reboot. That was around 2000.
That's right. He played Prospero. He played Prospero in that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and he's been in some dramedy stuff like St. Vincent with Melissa McCarthy, where she was trying to do a little more serious thing too, where he's just a curmudgeon of an old man that's sort of like a Gran Torino without racism or or just a lot of dourness. It's a very cute film. I do enjoy that one.
Wait, Prospero. No, I'm thinking of The Tempest. Sorry. No, wait, that's The Tempest. Who am I thinking of? What is the character in Hamlet? Not.
Who does he play in that? Let's see.
It's going to drive me. it's going to drive me crazy.
Crazy.
Jeez.
All right, look this up. I'm going to talk about Andie MacDowell for a second.
Yes.
So, beautiful Andie MacDowell. She's honestly not far behind in Bill Murray in credited acting roles, which kind of shocked me a little bit, just because I've not seen a lot of the stuff that was in her catalog when I was scanning through it. But she's got 90 acting credits out there.
Polonius. Not Prospero.
Who could forget Polonius?
Oh, Polonius. Anyway.
So she's still out there doing things like, which shocked me a bit. Like she's been doing plenty of work in the 2020s. Andie is sort of known for Groundhog Day as probably the biggest one, but she's also known for Hudson Hawk, which starred Bruce Willis, 4 Weddings and a Funeral, Sex, Lies, and Videotapes, and she went on to star in Multiplicity with Michael Keaton acting opposite of her, also directed by Harold Ramis. And notably, and I'll get to this in a bit more in the trivia, Michael Keaton was one of the people that got sent the script for this movie and was pitched the part of being Phil Connors.
Oof, boy, that...
Yeah, would have been a very different movie, right?
What an interesting... I mean, it's Michael Keaton, Beetlejuice here, come on, but... Yeah, no, that's interesting to
I've got
imagine.
the full list, and I am curious what you think of who perhaps could have pulled it off. I have my thoughts on it. We'll get to. But Andie MacDowell was also in the 2011 Footloose remake, which was... It was. And then she's been on shows, bits like 30 Rock, Mr. Mayor, and it's just been in a ton of films, frankly, that I've not seen, which every time I look in these IMDb credits lately, I'm like, I've seen a lot of movies, but there are a lot more to be seen in the world.
It's a vast array.
So good for her. Yeah, if Andie MacDowell heads, you've got 90 things you can watch her in at least if you're out there looking for more. Because she does nail this movie and is great in it. And then the last cast member I will talk about, because really there was not too many in a core of a looping thing that had a big part, was Chris Elliott as Larry here. You said you know him from...
Well, I mean, recently, Schitt's Creek, wonderful television series.
I know him, or he jumped out at me as he plays Lily's dad on How I Met Your Mother. I think he's in a fair amount of episodes on that. But when I looked back on it, I realized the thing I really knew him in, and I think the part that... I associate him with is for the Scary Movie heads out there. He is the butler with a strong hand in Scary Movie 2. It's the greasy little fellow who generates lots of laughs. Yeah, preparing a dinner with his little strong hand out there.
Cabin Boy is a funny movie. You know, it's worth a watch.
He's in James Cameron's The Abyss from 1989. So I mean,
I saw that credit. I'm trying to remember
who he was.
Yeah.
Good question.
Because that's an awesome film, by the way. Ooh, man, maybe we should review that. Yeah.
One of the things that I'm always open for a James Cameron one, mind you. One of the things, and this is perhaps catty or perhaps living in the modern era of the moment, that jumped out at me is both Chris Elliott, Bill Murray, and pretty much anyone that starred in the movie was just a balding man, because at the time they really didn't have current things like minoxidil, or, finasteride, or all these things that now have our movie stars with full, lush, thick heads of hair, regardless of if they're in that 40-50% of men that get to keep that naturally. And so it was interesting seeing a leading man with a fully receding hairline like Murray type stuff. Yeah. Chris Elliott being bald in a way that, again, he looks pretty much the same to me about 30 years later, interestingly.
Where have all the bald men gone?
So that's just another another. I mean, we look back at a film in the 90s or the early 90s where we talk about, him talking about long distance lines and people having receding hairlines in the acting, field.
Well, using a payphone to try to get to a better long distance line. Like, oh, geez.
So that, again, probably catty. Or just a noticing at the moment with how many hymn, struts, Roma, and all those things out there, they can just like fix that now. It's just an interesting bit. All right, let's do gayest part of the movie.
Yes. What was your moment?
Okay,
yes.
So my gayest part of this movie is I get the vibe that Phil may have fucked that gay waiter. Because
you have a theory.
He knows a lot about him. We only see him in one scene. But when you have all the time in the world, why wouldn't you try everything you can? I mean, he has this full hedonistic era or whatever. And at one point, he does have a line in the movie when Rita remarks she didn't know he could play piano, that Phil remarks that he's versatile. So maybe this week fucked him.
Yeah. I did. Okay, see, now that you have a working theory, I did note that, and it did strike me. It's like, versatile, eh? But okay, well.
But yeah, again, he knows what he does in his house at night. He paints toy soldiers. He knows things about this man, and shouldn't really. And just one of the first things he launches off to is that he's gay, and why would Phil know that? Did Phil stalk this person and see him meet up with a man, or did he get fucked by this person? So I mean,
wow, that's an intriguing theory. Phil was he was very busy during this get to know the town.
Yeah. So not only is this
moment.
a not anti-gay film, this could be a secret pro-gay film because Phil fucked that waiter.
Wow. Damn. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Okay. I mean, Gobbler's knob, but no, I think
a really high contender.
Okay. Yeah. No. Okay. Yeah. No. Okay. I like that. Let's go with it.
I was delighted to sort of put that together in my headcanon there. So
there you go. There you go. I'm impressed. Good.
So straightest part of this movie. Did you have candidates for that one? I'll go with mine if you want to.
Yeah. What's yours? What's yours?
It was hard to pick out because obviously, and I don't want to. There's a lot of these movies we're going to watch, guys, especially the older ones. There's just a big straight romance plot underlying them. And so it's just a cop-out to me, I feel like, to be like, it's a straight romance, obviously. But, Phil is a chauvinist who has to learn how to talk and interact with women, as one thought. He does plow his way through damn near the entire city, which, given he's a straight man, is inherently straight, but that's also a pretty gay thing to do also, is plowing your way through an entire small city and exhausting your grinder grid, mind you. So, I don't know, perhaps.
Yeah, we can't decide on that, I don't think.
I think the straightest part is Phil effortlessly jacking up a car and changing the tire, because you will not catch my gay ass doing that, mind you.
Well, it's definitely the butchest moment, for sure. I think the straightest moment might have been, again, I mentioned this before, some of the moments at Gobbler's Knob, where it's with the, GroundHog Phil and the townsfolk are there and they're having fun and they're dancing. Just watch their dancing. Each time you see a white person dancing in this film is probably the straightest moment in the film.
It's very true.
Yeah. It's
I cannot disagree on that one.
It's also the straightest and whitest moments. They serve double purpose. For sure.
All right. So let's knock out a little trivia here. This movie, frankly, being as beloved as it has a lot of interviews around it, has a lot of trivia surrounding it, and so there's a bit more to talk about here. According to the director, Harold Ramis, most of the time when he tried to explain a scene to Bill Murray, Murray would interrupt him and just ask, am I good Phil or am I bad Phil? Which is, you talk about the halfway turning point and how he's supposed to act. That's a very interesting thing to have happened, and also goes back to their feud where he probably was just a little short with him and being like, I know what to do, just tell me what to do there.
Well, and you can imagine how they filmed this film. Every time they went to a location, they did every single day of his ordeal that was required at that location, right? So it, depending on location, like the corner where he meets Ned, right? I mean, how many different days involve that location, right? And so when
actually a lot. That business that was in front of it tried to sue them for lost time and lost because of the Ned Ryerson
that much. So I can imagine that's quite an acting challenge, right? Because on that one day, Bill Murray is acting how many different days, and so how many different stages of this character,
For sure. I'm sure it was hard to both keep straight and that he felt like he was in a time loop himself to a degree whenever they shot a lot and at the same location. And just often with slight variances or whatever. And so So it's I didn't even think about that, frankly.
Yeah. Just how they probably had to do the production of it, and so that's quite an acting feat for Bill Murray in this.
So in the original version of the script by Danny Rubin, Phil Connors was actually already trapped inside Groundhog Day at the start of the story. Okay. We as viewers would have learned and been suspicious, much like Rita and others, being like, how does he know this? How does he know that? Because we would have already jumped in midway through the loop and whatever. And Harold Ramis promised not to change this aspect of the script, but ultimately decided to do so, and I think it served it probably better, but it would have been interesting maybe to like
it would have made it a different film. It wouldn't have been as whimsical at all, because the confusion would have been a more unsettling element, right? Because of the bit of I guess you could say framing, but it just kind of sets things up in a way that you know what's going on, like the audience kind of, you kind of know what's going on kind of quick, and part of what makes it light, I think, is just is seeing that transition. I don't know. I'm just trying to imagine what the film would be like if you woke up kind of in medias res, right, in the middle of it, and I don't know. I feel like it would have been a more distressing film somehow. I
think so, and I think I talked about it at the beginning of the opening scene. It's been a while now. We've been recording for hours, but the opening scene was not originally there in the script, and so they were not in Pittsburgh. We didn't necessarily see them get their sort of actor intros type something, but we didn't see Phil do that, and so that's where we would have been dropped in. I think we would have probably jumped in straight in Gobbler's Knob or whatever, where Phil is doing this and perhaps giving a tired version of the monologue or a particularly sassy version or something. Yeah. And so it was interesting that they went back and filmed that and then put it in there, because I think it was a good touch. But that is the only part of the film and scene that takes place outside of Punxsutawney. And so it is clearly different and was chosen to be that way.
Yeah.
In the end. We mentioned that Danny Rubin and Harold Ramis both said they avoided exploring the truly dark side of Phil's time-lapsing, which he would commit psychopathic and or violent actions without consequence. Again, that probably would have ranked that quite a bit higher than PG, should we have seen that, and really not have done a service to the audience to see our main character, who we want to learn and grow, just dismembering various townspeople or whatever. So, I mean, again, would have been a different movie. We could have judged it on its own there, but
would have been a very different film for sure. Absolutely.
This movie was selected in 2006 for preservation in the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant, which, cute, great. It's certainly stood the test of time and been a very
the cultural impact, I think, is pretty enormous.
It absolutely is, which brings me to that next point of time loop stories. We already talked about some of them that are out there and that exist now today. Apparently, Groundhog Day popularized this trope. It was in 1993, but there are examples from earlier periods. There's a 1973 short story, 12:01 p.m. by a guy named Richard A. Lupoff, who I believe actually also tried to sue Groundhog Day for sort of ripping him off in that regard. But it features a character reliving the same hour repeatedly. Even earlier, there are references to time loops in fiction, like William Dean Howells' Christmas Every Day, which is way back in 1892, mind you, 101 years earlier.
Sure.
And then a Russian novel from 1915, Strange Life of Ivan Osakin. So while all of those things certainly did that, Groundhog Day launched into the stratosphere. And you hear people say a Groundhog Day loop or something when talking about these time loop movies. Yeah. And it's just the first thing that comes to my mind when I see a movie like that, or like Palm Springs, Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow type stuff. So it is cute that it not only has its own legacy to stand on, it basically launched a subgenre ultimately.
It launched a device, a narrative device. Yeah, absolutely.
The writer Danny Rubin said that one of the moments that inspired the creation of this story came after reading the novel Interview with a Vampire, which got him thinking about what it would be like to live forever.
Sure, okay.
He actually wrote the script in 1 week, but then spent 7 weeks basically kind of having to go and do the continuity of it all and the intricacy of it and whatnot, which is interesting that it took you so much longer just to line up things and to be how do we actually pull this off type situation. One of my favorite bits of trivia I came across in this is that Cher, in an interview, Cher!
Cher. I can't do a good Cher impression to save my life.
I'm just like that drag queen Maya, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm great. Like
I'm a bad gay.
Terrible Cher
when it comes to this. Yeah.
Cher stated in it. No,
don't try.
That fans would send her letters saying they loved the song she made for the movie Groundhog Day. 1993, not realizing that the song was actually recorded in 1965, and so that she stated the movie helped boost album sales for her due to interest in the song. So
yeah.
There you go. Maybe that's the gayest part of the movie.
Sure.
That it provided a Cher renaissance.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned one of these at least. Yeah, a lot of scenes were left on the cutting room floor that drove home how long Murray was in this loop, including him bowling a perfect game, which is perhaps how we get into that bowling scene that was I probably placed earlier in the film after that, because chopping the head off of ice sculptures, which would certainly make sense. I'm sure some chainsaw violence was cathartic. The shaving his head and destroying the B&B room only to find everything fine again. He apparently pulled it back to the future by betting on sports games he knows the outcome of, which I think came after this movie. I'd have to look again. But didn't happen. I think they just ultimately decided there was a lot they could do with this concept and just left some of them on the cutting room floor because they did. Yeah. They did a good job with what they had there. Okay, here's something I really wanted to talk about. So we talk about how the whole device of him and how he gets in this time loop is not explained in this movie. The earliest drafts of the script explained this, though. They said the cause of this was Phil Connor's weird experience, was a disaffected ex-lover named Stephanie cast a spell on him to teach him a lesson. Okay. It was decided leaving it out made it more magical, which I agree with. I ultimately said I think it was a great choice. I could see why they would have done this because, again, Phil was an asshole who was not nice to women and was manipulative, and so it would have been... It could have been included, frankly.
I'm trying to think. Could you reveal the source of what's going on and not make it a lesser film? I feel like keeping it mysterious allows for it allows for it to be more meaningful, right? And if only because it gives you something to interpret. Maybe maybe it's like it's more meaningful because it's not as clear. But I'm just trying to think like if it was like a jilted girlfriend who casts a spell, like. God, it just it's like a bad tattoo.
More cheesecakey and tropey type something. It does lend itself more to the film being somewhat philosophical or open to interpretation, as opposed to being so straightforward like that.
And in a way that's just that. It would be very unsatisfying, just kind of cheesy. Just
I don't know if it would have ruined it completely in a sense, because Palm Springs, as I mentioned, is a great movie that does actually reveal what's going on, and it's more of a core part of the plot of like how do we break out of this loop because we know how. But it just I think the film is better for not doing it.
And it's sometimes better to just leave some things mysterious. Just you don't have to explain the mechanics of something, right? Like it doesn't have to be that kind of film, right? There doesn't have to be any. It's not like an MCU film, right? Where like the mechanics of the magic.
You need an antagonist or villain, whereas this movie did not particularly.
Yeah,
he was his own villain, frankly.
Exactly, and for that reason, it's more meaningful when it's not when it's magical, but it's not magic.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
For sure. I do think that, it brings in sort of an odd element as well to make it more of a magical and realistic. But it is what it is. It's interesting to hear that was potentially planned for that. And again, Harold Ramis gets a lot of credit for sort of talking Danny Rubin off of some of these things and polishing it up. They got co-writing credits, whatnot. And I think they did a great job. So I did not know this. In 2016, the film was adapted into a musical.
Okay.
It was a relatively unsuccessul musical, mind you, but it did get a Tony nomination. So, at least to call that out. So,
someone liked it?
I heard nothing about that. So
I didn't know anything about this.
I'm kind of curious now how this would have happened. And then the last bit. Okay, I brought this up earlier. The other notable actors that Harold Ramis considered for the part of Phil Connors, but thought they were all too nice, which is funny considering some of this list, were Tom Hanks, Stephen Martin, Robin Williams, Michael Keaton, John Travolta, and Chevy Chase. Who of that list do you think would have done a great job as Phil, if not Bill Murray?
Well, no one could do a schmuck like Chevy Chase, so he would definitely nail the first half of the movie.
Yeah,
for sure.
And the asshole vibe, frankly, that was the one I landed on because I do think he would have nailed Bad Phil.
Yeah, I guess Tom Hanks could have done it.
That was my number 2.
Yeah. Steve Martin, I think could have done. I don't know if could Steve Martin have sold the sentimentality. Like I don't know. I mean, Steve Martin's a great actor. I'm just trying to. Could he do the second half of the film?
He does a good job in like Father of the Bride or certain things I've seen. I feel like so. I bet he could have. But yeah, it is interesting to see what could have been in some of these movies. To see like Sylvester Stallone almost cast as the lead in The Mummy or something, or Michael Keaton almost being Groundhog Day.
Honestly, Robin Williams.
It would have brought a very manic energy, I feel like.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like maybe it would have just been too much that. This is not older Robin Williams. This is 1993, so yeah.
There would have been a lot more kissing Mrs. Lancaster scenes and
yeah. John Travolta.
That's the one on the list. I was like,
what?
All right.
What? I mean, okay, like 93. That means that Pulp Fiction was in production, I guess, at this point, because it was released 94. If I'm not mistaken. And so that John Travolta, what? No. What? No.
No.
Yeah. From this list, maybe Tom Hanks, I guess. Tom Hanks?
We'll go with that.
Yeah. Let's go with Tom Hanks. You can't go wrong with Tom Hanks. Oh, just old standby.
Well, that is about all we have for this particular movie.
I do. I have one correction that I feel compelled to make from the previous episode.
I was going to make this too. It's the one I'm thinking of.
Well, the actress who is not Rachel Weisz in The Haunting of Hill House, her name is Carla Gugino. I'm going to say this a few times just so I don't make this mistake again. You might have seen Carla Gugino in the Spy Kids films. Also, as I mentioned, Haunting of Hill House. Also in Sin City.
She's been in a lot of the Mike Flanagan stuff, The Midnight Mass, House of Usher.
And a number of Robert Rodriguez productions. But yeah, we had a problem. Well, we thought we had a problem with doppelgangers last episode. I think the problem is just us. The problem's just us. We can't blame the world.
She's very Rachel Weisz looking, as a little heavier on the makeup, perhaps. And that's why I believed you. Notably, in the episode, I was like, I didn't know that.
Wow.
You led me astray.
Yeah, that's because it's not true. That's why you didn't know. Yeah. I also made a slight error with Titanic. It wasn't 99. It was 97. So close. That's close.
Dragos, yeah.
Billy Zane was the villain in that one. I got that one correct.
That wasn't Arnold Vosloo.
No. Do you have any corrections?
No, I think that was it. I was going to go back for Carla Gugino because, yes, I do think they're both great actresses, but I don't want to give Rachel Weisz credit for her fantastic acting in the Mike Flanagan verse, who I think she does a great job in that. Yeah, if you haven't seen, specifically The Fall of the House of Usher is, I think, probably my favorite one of those, and she plays a great in that. But Haunting of Hill House, she's also just excellent.
Oh yeah. Scary. Oh man, we can get into discussion on another podcast whenever we review a film that has a lot of jump scares in it. Oh man, I don't like jump scares at all. But geez, The Haunting of Hill House. God, you'll be wetting yourself with some of those jump scares. They are just over the top intense. Like, good Lord.
Just to pitch that for a moment, I do think that show in particular has so many Easter eggs in the background. If you're watching that, I think in the follow-up series, there are ghosts just sprinkled throughout, like in all of the scenes.
It's a nice treat when you go back, when you pick up on it. It's like, oh, it has been there the whole time. Nice little treat.
Yeah, maybe someday we'll release paywall content talking TV, but for now we will keep this a film podcast because, frankly, there are a ton of films, as mentioned. So we will.
And we love films, and is it time to have a guest on the show? Should we have a first guest perhaps?
I think we should. Frankly, we will try going forward again to have a list of movies that we are going to be discussing, so that way you can write in with specific questions about them. And as that happens, yes, this is the part. We'll try to have it at the end here because we're very interested in listener questions. We probably have 3 of you right now, but.
We want all 2 of those questions.
But for those 3, our email address is listed in the details. Yes. We have a way to contact us. And so we'd love to hear that. We'll read them on air and stuff. And that's why, obviously, we want to get you a little bit of go-ahead time there so you can write in. And so we will do that. We have some friends and guests lined up that we are allowing to pick the movie. So that we will play off of their lead because we want them to love it and to be able to talk passionately about this.
We will perhaps get our respective boyfriends on the show, but we're gonna haul our friends in here. And every time we have a guest, we're gonna have them choose the film that we're going to watch and review, because I'm looking forward to, hearing our friends' enthusiastic takes on the films they like, and I hope you all do too.
Absolutely. And while we're not limiting it to homosexuals, that is the reason why I have rambled off at the beginning of this podcast every time 2 or more homosexuals could be, because frankly most of them are. We will be taking a decidedly queer take on the films, so that's what we have to offer. We love our straight listeners. We say the straight is part of the movie affectionately. We will have some straights on, but yes, many times 2 or more homosexuals will in fact reference the fact that when we have a guest on, they are also quite gay.
Yes. Extremely gay. Yes. All right. Well, does that wrap it up for us?
I think we're good. Groundhog Day, unless we want to just relive this and do it all over again, frankly.
Which I don't know. Do we?
No.
Yes, we do. Oh, Kyle, come on.
No.
That's
We've
hurtful.
Diverged. I was bad, Phil. And you just.
All right. Well, my name's Tommy.
I'm Kyle.
And this has been Video Head Cleaner. We'll see you again.
Bye.